And then the Philippines. So the Philippines is a rather vertical nation. It's fragmented as well, about 7,000 islands, and it is has density issues as well. Luzon, which is where the capital Manila is found, is very densely populated. Manila is the most densely populated city in Southeast Asia. The Philippines was a former Spanish colony, and then we acquired it after the Spanish-American War, and then they gained independence from us in '46. So there's a lot of familiarity with Spanish culture and with American culture. And that's the reason why Tagalog has so many shared words with Spanish, why so many people that live in the Philippines have Spanish last names. One of the things that the Spanish were really good at when they would have territories, two things, obviously spreading Catholicism, but the other thing they were very good at was, how can I put it, spreading the seed very early on to legitimize their claims to the land. So they would start procreating with locals almost immediately, so that the next generation was half Spanish, and it legitimized their claim to the territory. So that's one of the big reasons why you have so many Spanish last names, even though it's in Southeast Asia. As far as the cultural mix, because there's so many islands, just like you saw in Indonesia, there's going to be a mix in the Philippines as well. So you have Malay, Arab, Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, and American, although religiously homogenous, because the Spanish were very good at imposing their religion. So 83% Roman Catholic, and as a nation, mostly rural. And that's the crux of their population problems. When you have that combination, Catholic, which, it tends to have larger families, and if you're really Orthodox, no birth control, plus rural, where you view children as assets, that's a terrible mix if you have population density issues. As far as assets, they have an incredibly diverse natural environment. Because they're vertical, they span several or cross several latitudes, which gives them a lot of environmental diversity. Very, fertile land, great agricultural sector, which is one of the reasons why they remain so rural. A democratic government, however, their current leader is quite scary. They had some questionable leaders in their modern history. That's one of the reasons why you had a lot of Philippine citizens moving to the U.S., especially during the '80s. But their leader now, wow, it was depressing to say the least when he was elected. So let's take a look at who he is. Obviously, as far as problems, money mismanagement, they actually do have a fairly alarming ISIS presence, Muslim extremist presence in the Philippines that has not been dealt with, in my opinion, nearly well enough. The population growth rate is still quite high, and the drug industry is growing in the Philippines. However, the way in which they're dealing with it is barbaric, to say the least. So let's take a look at some images. So the image on the left was of President Corazon. Now, in the '80s, you had a dictatorship in the Philippines under the Marcoses, Ferdinand Marcos and Imelda Marcos. The U.S. had a hand in putting them there, and then ultimately we sided with their overthrow because they were crazy and exploiting the Philippines, and had been responsible for Corazon Aquino's husband's death. So she led the pro-democracy charge, most of which she was out of the country for because, for her safety. But ultimately they returned to democracy in '86, elected her president, and she was definitely a female role model for Philippine women all throughout the country. Then fast forward to today, and President Rodrigo Duterte on the right makes our current president look sane and rational. This man has said some of the most inflammatory things I've ever heard a national leader say, and that is including our own. For example, when he was mayor, there was a case in which a foreign aid worker, a woman, was gang raped and murdered, which would be absolutely atrocious. He's quoted as saying, after seeing a picture of her, that what a pity that she was gang raped. And he's just sad that they didn't let the mayor go first. Let that sink in. He's responding to the case of a foreign aid worker who was gang raped and murdered, and his response is he wished he could have gone first. That is disgusting. I can't even fathom what people are thinking when they voted for this man. He, in his political ads, he would brag about having killed drug users, not dealers. I mean, although he bragged about killing them as well, drug users. This is what his thought process is, that people who use drugs are just as dangerous and just as worthy of being killed as murderers, terrorists, in his mind, drug dealers. And that's how he's going to deal with the drug industry. He has admitted to having killed innocent people on accident. That's crazy. He has, at campaign rallies, promoted the use of death squads and extrajudicial killings. He said, hey, if you see a neighbor that's using drugs, if you kill them, you're doing me a favor. Don't worry about being prosecuted. What? You are telling your populace they can go ahead and kill somebody if they see them using drugs? That is madness. And so, not surprising, the number of extrajudicial killings in the Philippines is through the roof, and it is a humanitarian crisis. And the problem is that his supporters are those that are removed from that environment. For example, if you're not a drug dealer or a drug user, if you don't have any family who has been affected by drug use, then you're probably going to say, who cares if he kills drug users? That's not my problem. That's not my crowd. And you become apathetic to it. But in reality, what has happened is the number of extrajudicial killings has included people that aren't even involved in the drug industry. Because what you have happen are people, maybe somebody's suspected of using drugs, or maybe somebody's rumored to have used drugs, or maybe somebody hates some other person and spreads a lie saying, yeah, I saw them using drugs. So these death squads end up rolling out, not the police, these are just death squads, and end up taking out somebody and taking them out and then leaving the scene. So you have a dead body. And there are some incredibly brave journalists in the Philippines who are getting calls from residents saying, come out here and take pictures of the body before the police come. So they do. They go and they investigate before the police get there. And the police get there and take their pictures, and all of a sudden in the police pictures, there's a bag of drugs next to the body. But the journalist pictures, there's no drugs. And so if you understand what the implications are here, you are having people murdered in the Philippines whether or not they have anything to do with a drug industry. And even if they did, the idea that the punishment for using drugs should be death is insane. And yet, that's who they have elected. And so the argument is, well, crime is down. Great. You know what else makes crime plummet? Just murdering all of the citizens. How about you go to that extreme? Just kill all the citizens of the Philippines. Then guess what? You won't have any crime. I mean, the logic is so ridiculous that this is somehow justified or excusable simply because there's been a drop in crime is insane to me. And I'll never get it. And I have lots of Filipino friends that say, oh, he just talks tough, but he's doing great things for the country. And I think, where have I heard things like that before? Excuse the idiocy coming out of his mouth. He doesn't really mean it, and so what? Excusing this type of behavior and rhetoric is just unacceptable to me. And it's unfortunate because I love the Philippines, and I would say everybody should visit there. And the Philippines the citizens are incredibly nice. It's beautiful. It's welcoming, and it just sucks that they have this guy as a leader right now.